I haven't done an interview in, I don't know, like 5 years. I mean, I like to do them when I have something to plug. I feel kind of navel-gazy at the moment.
But we have a lot to discuss.
I'm a big fan of yours, and you were persistent, and I was flattered. And
you're in my vortex. You've touched a lot of different things that I love over the years.
I have fondled many things that you love.
Yeah, one of the reasons I want to talk to you, I think the timing is good for this, is SNL is starting next week. I think the 39th season.
That's right.
And your first season was
1985-86.
So the transition season.
Yeah, it's the kindest way to put it.
So every once in a while they'll have these transition years where the old stalwarts go away. They bring in the new ones.
Much fewer and further between by design.
Right.
But this year, the timing was such that 4 incredible performers all left, and like a year before, Kristen left,
right,
and Andy, I believe.
It's almost like high school. The new class, old class leaves, the new people rise up.
That's how it was, and then after 85-86,
right,
which you kids aren't going to know this, but there was Lorne came back. He was gone for 5 years. That were pretty rocky, except Eddie Murphy was amazing, and then there was the very last year was the All-Star year.
See, I'm very partial. I think the All-Star year gets a bad rap. The All-Star year is fantastic.
People look at it as an amazing year.
Well, it was like a non-Lorne year, so it's not that cool to rave about
I've made fun of that in cartoons and things like that.
Yeah. But Martin Short, Billy Crystal.
Yeah. My favorite characters ever are from that year, the Night Watchman. I hate when that happens.
Oh, that guy?
The two guys who would just talk about how they injured themselves and tortured themselves as if it was accidental, and then I hate when that happens.
I love those guys.
People still say that catchphrase.
Nathan Thurm was in there.
Oh, yeah. It was one of the best performances ever, Marty Short. But then and I was very lucky. I was in Chicago in a sketch group, and Franken and Davis were shooting a movie that they were starring in. They were playing.
Was it One More Saturday
Night?
Okay.
Yes. They played. It was like a Grateful Dead kind of band, and they were the lead guitarists and singers. And I don't know. In my opinion, it's the greatest movie of all time because it got me hired for SNL. A guy named Dave Reynolds, who was in my comedy group, got cast in the movie, and Franken and Davis saw our show just to be friendly.
Yeah. They
really liked it. And that was it. I thought, oh, that's nice. That'll keep me going for a few more years.
Right. You felt good.
And a month later, back when people read TV Guide, there's that front page about news, and it says Franken and Davis, Lorne Michaels is returning to SNL. And he's hired Franken and Davis as producers.
You knew that was good for you.
It's the closest I've ever come to literally hitting the ceiling in that expression. It was just, how could this be happening? And then somehow I got hired as a writer. They were starting completely from scratch, or I never would have got hired. I mean, they hired all these amazing people, and then I was just under the wire.
Was Larry David on that year?
Larry David couldn't get sketches on with Ebersol.
Oh, that's
Famously,
what it was. He was
wrote
the year
that
before.
Costanza episode where Costanza says he's quitting.
Yeah.
And then he ends up showing up to work and ignoring, trying to
that was about SNL?
Larry David did that. He told off Dick Ebersol at the party after one show. He's like, enough. I'm fed up with this. And then he realized that, you know what, I need the money. I need to keep doing this. So he just came back Monday and acted like it didn't happen.
And what happened?
They let it go. There are a lot of weird people there, so it's okay.
So the season you had was.
Yeah, so
I would say one of the 3 worst seasons in the history of the show.
I would say
that's fair, right?
Fair. Yeah, and I think it's
not your fault.
No, it was nobody's fault. I mean,
they had a whole new cast.
Robert Downey Jr. I mean, Joan Cusack. These are brilliant people. They just were thrown into this world that they were unfamiliar with, live sketch performing.
Anthony Michael Hall,
who was hilarious in the movies he'd been in, and Randy Quaid.
So his thinking was, talented. I'm going to go out of the box. I'm not going to get typical people.
Exactly. I think he didn't want to repeat himself. I think he was a little self-conscious about coming back to Saturday Night Live because when he left, he was like, I'm never coming back. And I think he just wanted to reinvent it to make him feel like he was, progressing it or in some way. And then, I mean, I think a lot of those people might have succeeded if there had been like Phil Hartman there and Jan Hooks.
You didn't have the glue guy.
The glue
guy, Phil Hartman.
And the gluette. She was basically the same thing for the women. It's like if you have people like that who can basically do anything, then everybody else can sort of shine at what they excel at, you know. And so I think, you know, somebody like Joan, I don't see why she wouldn't have succeeded at SNL if she hadn't been forced to play so many roles in her first year.
So you're going through that year, and you're just assuming at the end of the year everybody's gone.
Yeah, I wrote a sketch about it, actually. It was one of the most successful sketches I had on. You know, there was a big gimmick back then that was just starting up, the cliffhanger. You know, there was the...
like Who Shot JR?
Yeah, and so we set... Billy Martin was on the show.
He was the host?
No, Angelica Houston was the host. And they were so sort of desperate for ratings that they would have like sort of secondary people come on and be in a few sketches. And Billy Martin was in like a runner throughout the show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he was just there, and he was in a few sketches too. And then they built this runner around this sketch that I had written that involved Billy Martin getting angry and setting the studio on fire. And so the studio's on fire, and Lorne comes out, and he only pulls John Lovitz.
Oh, because he was the breakout star.
Yeah, he was the breakout star. And it, you know, it's all out of context now, but it was like one of the most successful and talked about sketches I had on my first year, and it might have helped me get rehired even.
So you were winking to the fact that a lot of people were leaving.
Yeah, and then Downey had this amazingly funny idea, which was on the credit roll.
Yeah,
it was like before the credits ran, it was like, who will survive, and then everybody's name had a question mark.
Oh, nice.
But
so you just had Dennis Miller survived,
Dennis and Nora, who were not thrilled with the sketch because they felt they had done well. They were the two. I think Dennis in particular was pretty offended because he had really done well.
Yeah. Well, here's the one thing you look forward to.
But then after the show, he gave me a hug and said he understood. And actually, he is a big reason why I was rehired. He recommended me over the summer.
So then the next year's cast.
Next year, first show, Phil Hartman, Dana Carvey, Jan Hooks, Kevin Nealon, Victoria Jackson, all added. And Lovitz, Nora, Dennis retained. And it was like a different world. And it was amazing. The most amazing thing about it was... we had an incredible writing staff that first year. People who were fired are legends now. Like John Swartzwelder is this guy. You maybe have not heard of him, but he became an original Simpsons writer and maybe the greatest Simpsons writer ever. He was my roommate that year. Yeah. And let me see. Carol Leifer, very funny comedian who wrote for Seinfeld later. Mark McKinney and Bruce McCullough, who became Kids in the Hall full-time. Incredible comedy group. And those are the people who were fired. And Jack Handy, I think, was even let go for a few months, and then they were like, this is ridiculous, and brought him back.
They fired Jack Handy?
I think he was let go for at least half the year, and then he was brought back. I might be wrong, but I think, and Jack Handy is the guy that every writer there looked at as like, because his stuff was untouchable. It was, he could... like everybody, there are amazing, great writers.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just go on and on about Jim Downey and George Meyer and Andy Breckman and Al Franken and, oh my God, me. and Conan and Odenkirk. No, but Jack's ideas, you would hear them and you would be like, I would never have thought of that one. Like I would write stuff that would work and kill. But other people could, not all of them, but some people could have thought of some of them.
And those rooms are super insecure. Everybody's heard every joke, so it's really hard to make everybody laugh.
Well, people get very jaded very quickly.
Yep.
And people are very people have different, cliques are created.
Gets a little competitive.
Well, it's very competitive. I mean, he gets like 40 sketches a week to pick from.
Yep.
It's not the
You're
healthiest.
lining with different cast members.
Yeah.
You have your little gangs.
Well, there's that too. Like I really bonded with Carvey very quickly.
Good guy to bond with.
Well, yeah, I didn't realize that. No, but we just had a very similar sense of like we loved doing abstract impersonations and sort of playing with them and exaggerating them that kind of thing. So, I mean, yes, you bond with certain people that you connect with, like I bonded with Conan, obviously. But it's very competitive, and you're exhausted on Wednesday afternoon, and you're listening to these sketches, and you're tense. I mean, but you try to be fair and laugh at everything that's funny, whether it's going to hurt your chances or not. But
are you amazed that they still do that show pretty much the same way all these years later, when we now have email and the internet and all these things that would seem to facilitate?
Well, yeah. I mean, I used to write on a legal pad. This is how. It's like no one's going to hire me after this. He is old.
How old is that dude?
I wrote on a yellow legal pad for most of my career there as a staff writer.
They didn't really have computers that most people used.
Franken produced a laptop in like 1991, and I was like,
get that thing out of here.
I like the romance of seeing what I crossed out and watching the process and savoring it. And like 2 years later,
you had a computer.
Yeah, and I was just like, what was it? This is so much better.
I would say that cast in the late 80s, actually, I might stretch it to when Myers showed up, but just pound for pound, the best cast.
I don't know.
Because it had no weak
amazing.
spots.
No, they're incredible.
And I don't think you need more than 8 people on the cast. I really don't. I don't think you need 14.
Well, this is what I was getting at earlier. When I say I don't know, I mean, they were amazing. They were amazing. But I'm partial. Lorne Michaels always says, you're partial to the cast you were in high school with. And that was the original cast for me. Right. I was like 14 when that's.
It's like where you liked the music when you were 17 the most.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And so I love. I mean, every time I've met one of those people, I'm just, floored. And they're really the reason that I realized that it was a worthy profession.
Right.
Yeah, like I thought about how much enjoyment I received from those guys. And I was like, oh, so it's not a waste of time to be in show business necessarily.
And at that point, nobody was looking at the show as this launching pad to go do movies. I mean, maybe a little bit, but not. There wasn't like, if I have a hit character, it's going to become a franchise, and I'll get a movie out of it.
No, they really weren't. And it's funny. I was at this dinner. Lorne was really nice. He threw this dinner for Tom Davis, who was Al Franken's writing partner, brilliant guy, and he
wrote a good book, by the way. I enjoyed his book.
Yeah, and he was terminally ill though at the time. He passed away. Right? Yeah, and. But everyone knew he was terminally ill. He threw this party, and everybody was making tributes. And Aykroyd was going on and on because Aykroyd loves to wax romantic about those years. And, if you could just imagine those years. And I feel for the people who weren't there because we were there. We weren't there to become famous. We weren't there for the money. We were there for the love. And then Murray comes on. And the funniest line, he's the funniest guy I've ever met, I think.
Really?
And he says, Danny's right. We were not there. We weren't there to make money. We were there to make Lorne money. As much as succeeding at the show, I dreamed of the show regaining that cultural touchstoneness. And it happened, it came close many times and I had a wonderful experience there, but I just left and then that happened and I wrote to Lorne. It was like I stepped out of 30 Rock and fireworks went off. It was it's so strange.
The thing about the 70s though is there's like 5 channels.
Oh, I know. It's the same thing with Carson. It's the same thing. It's like
it's such an advantage.
It's impossible to compare, but I mean, you watch Carson though and you understand that he was pretty great. And
did you write Carcinio?
Yeah, I wrote all those.
You made Carson angry.
He liked Carcinio.
No, he didn't.
No, I know. I'll tell you exactly what happened.
He hated Carcinio.
No, I'll tell you what happened. Okay, so I think Bonnie and Terry Turner, great writers, wrote the very first Johnny Carson sketch, and then I sort of got a hold of it because I had other observations, and Dana and I talked about it, and I had this thing in my head. That is weird, wild stuff. Or the stuff was there, but just everything is weird and wild, and even like in the 80s, Johnny was still amazing, but I think there was a tiny bit of insecurity when Letterman got so big because Letterman just was reinventing television. And Johnny,
he was on magazine covers and everything. Yeah.
And occasionally Johnny started to try to do little bit Letterman-y things, where he would go out and like break the fourth wall, but he would kind of ruin it because he would go, right now we're going to do something. It's a little weird, a little not what we usually. No, sir, not the usual.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And so I kind of just sort of ran with that and turned everything into that is weird, that is wild, and then we had a few good ones with Johnny, and then this Arsenio thing.
Well, then Hartman as McMahon was kind of the secret.
Yes, because it was a very dry joke. This was a very dry joke that would never have worked if we didn't have Hartman at the end punctuating every line with, yes, sir, you are correct, sir.
Kind of semi-drunk,
yes.
Totally agreeable.
Yeah.
Ed McMahon, one of the greats.
Yes, and you are correct, sir, became this thing that everybody would say to Ed McMahon. He would say it once in a blue moon, but it became this like thing that he always says in everyone's mind. But so then we do one. Because I was always like, I'm like, this is Saturday Night Live, man. We got to hit him. I believed in that. I was always like, So Arsenio had become really big and really hot. And this was a mean sketch. This was not the Arsenio, but first we did a sketch where Arsenio came on as Chris Rock as Arsenio.
Yeah.
And Johnny, we wrote it like that Johnny didn't even know, like it was almost like he was out of touch. Like, no, I understand that you have a new show,
Right.
And it says here that your show is hot and that ours is a little out of date.
I remember that.
I did not know that.
Out of touch, yes.
Yeah. Did you know that, Ed?
Yeah.
Yes. That was a sketch Johnny didn't like.
That was the one that made him mad. I knew one of them made him mad.
And actually, what made him even angrier, I don't know why. I'm sorry if I'm digressing too much into this.
Johnny's daddy's not going to care.
No. I mean, but for your show, if it's boring.
I love it.
Yeah, okay, good.
No, I'm on board 100%.
So the first guest, we always had like a first guest before like the real meat of the show,
right.
Of the bit. And so in this case, originally it was Jan as Sinead O'Connor. And then Lauren said, and we were doing baldy jokes and things like that. And then Lauren said he wanted her to be Susan Day. She did an amazing impression of Susan Day from L.A. Law.
Yep.
So Lauren actually had the idea, and you could have him mix it up with the Partridge Family. So we did that. We wrote a thing where the Partridge and Johnny took it. We were still going for like the show is a little rickety, but Johnny took it as like somehow he actually said on the Tonight Show, and if you heard this, Ed, they're calling me senile. And it just broke my heart because I love Johnny Carson, and the idea that he would have thought we were attacking him like that just killed me, And then we didn't do any Johnny sketches for the season.
You backed off
until I had the Carcinio idea, and then he actually spoke to Dana Carvey and said, "Now that one was good. I like that one because it makes fun of both of us."
Interesting. Yeah. And that was the crazy thing about Carcinio. It was making fun of
Arsenio. He had extended fingers.
But you were played by Rob Lowe.
That was another one I wrote.
Oh, that was another one.
That was a totally different.
What was the one, Rob Lowe?
That was the Arsenio Beckman show.
Oh, that's right.
That was like a pale white guy.
That's right. Carvey was Carcinio.
And then Carvey it was sort of a similar idea, but I don't know, somehow it was fresh again.
Because I remember when Rob Lowe did Arsenio Beckman, I was like, oh, Rob Lowe's funny? Nobody knew. Funny. He turned out to be really funny. Yeah, everybody knows that now.
Yeah, that was,
he was just like dude from 80s movies.
Yes.
Sinatra you went with.
Sinatra.
With,
yes,
and that eventually turned into.
Sinatra
with Hartman.
Well, Bonnie and Terry. It's so funny. They wrote the first one. They wrote a sketch where Sinatra and George Michael go at it because Dana used to do George Michael.
Yeah,
did this really funny bit where George Michael would talk about his butt and how it has healing powers. It was like the original Chuck Norris.
Yeah,
except it was George Michael's butt can do anything and can solve anything in it, and then. Then Frank Sinatra wrote a crazy, or at least it was a Sinatra style public flogging of George Michael. Like it was a letter he wrote in the L.A. Times, an open letter to George Michael. I don't even remember what George Michael had done to deserve this, but it was like all Sinatra speak. And then I wrote a McLaughlin group sketch, which is I prefer to the Sinatra group because it's more insane and abstract. But then a couple of weeks, and it was a huge hit where Dana Carvey played John McLaughlin. a guy who had a roundtable show, kids, in the 1990.
Yeah, who's his equivalent
Actually,
now?
I think he's still on, but he's like on PBS 3 or something.
Who's his equivalent then?
Chris Matthews tried it for a while. Yeah. But now, so anyway, and then I did one with Sinatra that became one of the most famous things I ever wrote. And I wrote it with Terry Turner and Jim Downey. They helped me write that one.
It's in my top 4. I don't know what the ranking is. Yeah, it's on the Rushmore.
Well, you got to have Cowbell. Cowbell's got to be in there.
It's on there.
And Dick in a Box has to be in there.
I don't count that as a sketch.
Oh, okay.
That's in the digital video sphere.
I would count those two, and I would count the Al Gore George Bush debate #1, which was very important to the show. Kind of brought the show back. Jim Downey came back to the show and just wrote that all by himself, and everybody was talking about SNL again. That was like the year 2000.
It would come in waves, though. The SNL, it's dead, it's back, it's dead. Oh, it's back. Yeah. And I remember, like in the early 90s,
that revived it. That sketch. Then I think Tina Fey's general presence was a huge, and her Sarah Palin, obviously.
Well, no, earlier than that, Will Ferrell a little bit. Will Ferrell
was amazing. I consider him the best cast member ever. I really do.
I was going to ask you that, so you'd have him #1.
I do, because if you consider, you have to, I'm as nerdy as you about this, obviously, and to me, I mean, they're all so many amazing people. He could be in sketches that were where he was just a regular guy and be hilarious. He could do the Jack Handy kind of stuff.
Own the Room, he could do that.
Own the Room, but I mean, and recurring characters. And the Matt Foley, that would be in the top. It should be in your top 5. Bob Odenkirk wrote that. Except for the end. I had to put the end in because Bob wasn't on the show anymore. He wrote it at Second City. And I always regret this on some level. I think it's the best character sketch in the show's history. And but it didn't really have a dynamic ending for television. So I wrote the part where he's like, Matt's going to shadow you. Matt, you're here. Matt's going to be here. You're there. Matt's going to be. And then he ends up breaking the coffee table.
Right.
A big physical ending, which worked. And it was great and a nice way to end it. But then just Farley ended up falling and breaking things for the last 2 or 3 years of his career at SNL. He was
going through the wall and
constantly breaking things. And it was just kind of wrong because he was a great athlete and he was really like he was very graceful. And it didn't make sense. And he fell a lot in Tommy Boy.
Yeah.
I guess you have to be graceful to fall funny, too. But, I mean, he started, like, we would just make fun of it after a while. Like, okay, Chris, we need a triple box stop this time, Okay, so Fatty falls sideways? Yeah. He was a smart guy. He had a healthy cynicism about what made people laugh about what he did.
When that transition year happened, that 95, which was another good example.
Yeah.
That's when the Saturday Night Live is dying thing started. And I remember that New York Magazine guy was in there for a week.
Yeah.
And kind of sneak attacked everybody.
Well, and Janine was in there trashing the show. She had already left. Like, she left sort of halfway in.
She was lobbing grenades from a distance.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. And I love her. I think she's really funny, but it was a tough thing for the show. And I was so happy that Lorne, that's the most vulnerable Lorne has ever been, I think, in his career.
Yeah.
And I was worried that he wasn't going to come back, and he did. He actually invited me to produce under him, which I didn't want to do. I think there was a perception that everybody thought that, of course, he wants to do it because I was such a second-guessing wise guy.
Right.
But it was not a job I really coveted. I like writing. I loved being the head writer at Conan because we were starting from scratch, and we created 100 bits that they ended up doing for years and years, and that was the most exciting job I've ever had.
Yep.
But even that job I burned out on because it got to the point where, okay, we figured out the show, we've pared away the stuff that isn't working and made it the best show for Conan, and now it's just a talk show where you have to redo let's do actual items
Jukebox.
again. Yeah. And then it just wasn't fun anymore.
I remember you talking about how hard it was to create the Conan show. Letterman was quite hot at that point. He had just switched networks. He was in the full-scale resurgence. He had a lot of imitators.
Yeah.
And your goal was to not imitate him in any way possible.
Yes. Lauren would call it defining yourself by what you're not, which was, I was obsessive about it. Like, I wouldn't allow so many things that first year especially. Just, I wouldn't have, no backstage guys, no stage hands on camera.
No goofy stage hits?
Yeah, found humor, basically. Yeah. And Conan understood. It was like, he does found humor, and we're going to be the show that makes everything up. And we came up with all kinds of bits that worked in that regard, like the celebrity interviews that weren't really celebrity interviews. There was the picture of Bill Clinton, and I would scream like an idiot.
You just stick the tongue out.
Yeah. That may be the most thrilling moment of my life, when I lapped up the first time we did that. And Conan puts the mug next to Clinton, and I lap it up like a kitten. And the laugh we got, it was just so thrilling, because we were doing something brand new. And
you weren't treated kindly coming out of the gate. I mean, this has been discussed a million times.
Well, coming out of the gate, we were, because we were coming out of the gate. Chevy Chase had been on the air for 2 weeks beforehand, and he did Conan.
Is that true?
Yes, Chevy Chase's comeback show debuted. Letterman debuted in August. Chevy Chase in the beginning of September or the end of August.
So other than the Frank and Davis thing, that's one of the big breaks of your career. Just Chevy Chase coming on.
That bought us the time we needed. No, it made the first week look. Yeah, the critics weren't awful to us for the first week.
They had already had all the knives and the axes out.
I know, and they held back, and I thought we had dodged it, but no, they were obsessed with Letterman's replacement, and they were on us 2 weeks later, literally. People were calling it a disaster, and ripping us and ripping the writing. And what I was going to say about that SNL year, 1985, 1986, was a similar thing where the cast was not really working for Saturday Night Live, but constantly I would hear the writing sucks, and I knew that I was working with people that I was, in awe of. And Lorne, I know I mentioned the ones that were fired, but they paled compared to all the ones he kept, including me.
Yep.
He kept the majority of the writing staff, and I'm telling you, that first show when the new cast came, it was we knew we were set. We knew everything was different. Harvey Hartman, Jan, Kevin, it was just and it was this crazy, more validating than any Emmy could ever be. It's just oh wow, see, guys who know how to do sketch comedy and make the audience feel comfortable because they're confident. Same writing staff. And everything's fine. And the same thing sort of happened with Conan, where, Conan will be the first to say that the biggest problem with the show was that Conan wasn't comfortable, on camera. And obviously some of that had to do with some of our material, because I wanted the show to be nuts. I mean, I had people interrupting interviews. I had characters who would be like, "This is Doug, Conan's neighbor," and he'd be sitting next to Gore Vidal, and then he'd get interrupted by this guy at the door who's like, "Hey, Conesy, how you doing?" It's just a character. Conan's forced to play a sketch, and Gore Vidal is totally puzzled, and Conan's been on TV for 3 days.
Right.
So now and then the bit's over, and then he has to go back and sort of regroup the Gore Vidal interview.
When did you feel like he had command? Because I know for Jimmy, I always felt like
comedy's all about confidence, and
that's the thing, especially with hosting a late night show.
Yeah.
You have to be. It's like playing quarterback.
I think there have been stages with Conan, and I think a couple of years in was when he really started to really start kicking in and feeling like he belonged there and not worrying as much about the audience. And I think it's gone. There have been ebbs and flows, or whatever the expression is. I actually think when Andy left the first time, Conan became a better host. It was a good training thing for Conan, because it wasn't until then that he really had to learn how to fill time without a net, without anybody to talk to. I mean, he had Max still, but Max was had already been established as like, he's funny because he's kind of stiff, which Max fully embraced and was cool with. But so it created this challenge for Conan that I think took some of the pressure off, because it was like, okay, now I've got to fill time by myself, and it's kind of ridiculous, this whole pursuit of filling time on television. And I think it made him better.
I remember for Jimmy, I always felt like when jokes don't work, that's like the final stage for a late night host. And I remember Jimmy, like, if the joke bombed, he would move on to the next one. Yeah. He was learning the job. Now he's done 2,000 shows.
Conan would do a Carson thing, but he would push that a little too hard in the early years. Like, he would make too much fun of himself bombing.
Yeah, there's some sort of sweet spot. And you know it when you see it. And like, I watch Jimmy now, and he's in command now. He knows. Yeah. He gets it.
I always felt like Jimmy was like, I mean, he had a lot more experience than Conan on camera when he.
This is true.
Like, Jimmy's a broadcaster, and I felt like he always at least had that going for him, that he looked calm, and he looked like, he kind of looked like he belonged, I think. I think the show got a lot better. I think the show, a lot of it, like, I don't know if people talk about it. I think Jill Lederman's incredible.
Executive producer.
Yeah, executive producer. And I know she came in about 8 years ago, and I feel like the show got tighter, and the writing and the comedy, I think they put more focus on it, It felt like early years it was a little looser. Yeah. And sort of by design, because I know Jimmy is a great, like I said, he's a funny broadcaster, and I think he liked the looseness of it, and I liked. Yeah, every show attempts things that you're going to end up dropping, or at least I do now when I watch these.
What was some of your stuff from that first year?
Oh, well, one of the things I was most obsessed with was we were going to have fake guests, and like guests in the, who would be there, like in between the first and second guest, we'd have a fake guest, and it would either be someone in a big costume that was a broad character, and sometimes it wouldn't be. Something a little subtler. Like one time I was on and I played a guy who had, I was dressed up with like a red beard, and I was an animal trainer, and I had this character like Bob Calderwald and his famous urinimals. And it was a parody of how Carson would always, whenever an animal would pee, it was gold. Yeah. So mine have been trained to pee on command. And I would do this bit, and it worked really great. But then I would slide down the couch, and the next guest would have to sit next to this idiot in a costume who's got urine remnants on him. And we thought it was thrilling. And even Don Ohlmeyer would like tell everybody, and how about this idea they got? He was excited too. But as the show, it became very clear that the most important thing about any of these shows is you've got to make the host look good. And if there's a bit that was going on that was interfering with Conan's development on camera, it had to go. And that was one of the last things to go, but I reluctantly gave that up about a year in. And, Begrudgingly. I think it would have worked with a guy who was completely confident and didn't give a shit. So the super fans, so Odenkirk said, let's do the sports, let's do them, predicting the games. And then I said, Bears 62-3, just like, right. And then we just rolled from there of just the absurdity of
Did you become
super
famous?
Confident.
Did people start recognizing you?
No, because I walk around like this without the shades and the hat and...
So that's like the perfect kind of sketch then.
Everything. And not only that, but I wore sunglasses, so I didn't have to learn my lines. I could be cue card bound and I could eat. which actually was useful, because I'm not, at the time I was like very intimidated being an actor on SNL, and it gave me bits of business, as they call it in theater. So I would literally eat like... I wouldn't tell my parents that I was on. I couldn't bear the idea of them like hoping, and Robert, how's he going to do? Because they're very loving people and they care too much. So I wouldn't tell. I never told them when it was going to be on. I never got over that.
So you started doing Triumph, and I remember
Triumph came like
8 years later, something like that, or 6 years
later. I did. I created a bit on Conan. Again, we talked about this found humor joke thing of Letterman. And we were watching Letterman very closely. He'd moved to CBS, and he was doing all this energy kind of stuff. His show had changed from NBC to CBS. And then I did it in rehearsal, and I had written out the For Me to Poop On. And at that time, it was really, the joke was completely on the dog. It was like, this dog sucks at insult comedy. Every punchline ends with For Me to Poop On.
Yeah. But
still, Frank Smiley, this segment producer who's the best in the business, and he's still here at Conan, and he comes up to me, he said, "That's going to be huge." Like, what are you talking about? I'm telling you. And he actually talks like that. He's like a Broadway Danny
Jackie
Rose
Mason,
kind of guy. Yeah. And then we kept doing it. It was a big hit, and we kept doing it, and it didn't even have a name.
It kind of became a way to roast the guests a little bit. It kind of predated the roasts.
That started. That's
the
how it
Celebrity
started.
Roast took off in 2000 again on Comedy Central, or 2002, whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
but it was after Triumph.
Yeah, it was. It was. I don't know that I get any credit for that, but
I think you should get credit.
I'll take it.
Maybe partial credit.
Like, does money come with credit?
No,
I don't care.
Partial credit. Partial creative.
I don't care.
Respect credit.
It's odd. I actually did. I did one of those roasts in the early days, like a Friars roast of Rob Reiner, back when it was like, you know.
They televised that.
Yeah, it was on Comedy Central.
I remember that. I've seen every roast.
Yeah, I got to go first or second, and I murdered. And then.
Didn't you?
But
did you do the how much Penny Marshall? How much is that dog in the window, or is that Jeff Ross?
No, I was like, I get nervous about women's looks. There are a few subjects I try to.
Jeff Ross did it.
Yeah.
It was tough. Yeah. Rob Reiner didn't like that one.
No, I focused more on his girth.
Yeah.
His absence of hair, his beard. My best joke was like, "I love the beard and the weight. You're like Orson Welles without all that genius baggage."
It was a comedy album?
Long time. Yes. Come Poop With Me. Yes. This is 10 years
Strong
ago.
title.
Thank you. It was between that and Songs in the Key of Poop. I went with Come Poop With Me. And it was a funny album, but I just did it as a lark. Like, I thought, let's just parody comedy albums from the 60s. They used to have these like dirty song albums, right. Belle Barth, those kind of. I thought maybe it'll sell 100,000 albums. That'd be amazing, and I thought it'd be on a small label. And then Sandler's like, "You doing an album? Let's do it. We do it with my label. What if you do it with my label?" And so Warner Brothers was like, "Yeah, we're in," and they just had different expectations. And the thing sold big right away because people really did love Triumph, but it was such a filthy album. And it literally just dropped off a cliff, like at 120,000.
So it made the money back then.
Yeah, probably, but still, it was just. I've never seen. It was just. It had no legs.
Sounds like you have regrets about the Triumph album.
I don't know. I made the album I wanted to make, but it wasn't as. They were disappointed. I think they wanted. And I could have made a more successful album. I learned that people really love the insults and the tension between Triumph and not the animal sex is like the little icing on the cake.
So if somebody was going to go on YouTube and go look at one Triumph thing that you've done, what would you recommend?
Well, everybody's seen the Star Wars one, so I wouldn't recommend that one. That's the most famous one.
Comedy needs pain. You don't want to
need pain.
You don't want to be on a cliff in Hawaii writing comedy.
No, and it's like Lauren would always say, it's about the work in Chicago. That's what he would say, and it's true. Like, I have a nephew now who you saw. I brought him to the Emmys. He's starting in comedy, and I told him that's the place to start. Just because there it's just all you're going to do. You're not going to get caught up on how you're doing and what show you're going to get hired by. You're just there to do the work and to learn and to improve and decide whether you can do this or not. And I had the best time of my life there, and the dream came true. I got hired by SNL, but I loved Chicago so much that I actually felt like, I wish this could happen a few years later. Even back then, I just because it's just the greatest place for kids to start. It's affordable. Summer's the best there. I don't know.
What is your relationship with Lauren? Because you've left the show once or twice, but you always seem to drift back.
Yeah, or crawl, depending on the income situation.
Because you did the animated videos.
Yes, which started with Lauren every week.
Started with his voice.
Come back here with my show.
Now, who did the first Lauren impression? Was it Carvey? Like that,
the first Lauren impression that I ever heard.
This could be like an oral history almost.
I know. We could be here forever with the Lauren impression stuff. Mark McKinney did the very first. I know this.
Before Carvey?
Yeah, well, here's what happened. Mark McKinney did a really accurate Lauren.
You're talking mid-'80s when he was
1985, 86.
Okay.
He was there for one season. He was the only person doing Lauren. He did a beautifully realized, very accurate Lauren that was very cutting and specific, and he ended up playing a guy just like that in the Kids in the Hall movie, Brain Candy, which is an incredible movie. People should see it. Mm-hmm. And then the next year, Mark was gone, and Carvey and me both started like parallel kind of doing Lauren impressions. And one of the ways we bonded.
Dueling Lauren impersonators?
No, they weren't dueling because we actually had sort of a very similar kind of over-the-top kind of, oh, I'm Lauren and oh, I've got the show. It was very cartoony and more abstract.
So you were like two kids in high school, like making fun of the science teacher and just
every show
it.
is like this. I'm sure everybody at every talk show talks about the host endlessly, good and bad.
People I know my Grantland dudes do my voice. Don't think I don't know Grantland
you're
people.
Like very imitatable.
Yeah, I know what they're up to.
No, it's a good thing. It's good to have a specific sound.
Yeah, I know what they're up to.
Someday SNL. Somebody's going to do it.
An NBA countdown sketch.
Yeah, exactly.
It wouldn't be hard.
I'm trying to think. So who else is on that now? You got...
Well, we'd have Magic, who could easily be done. Jalen Rose, I think, could be done. And then Doug Collins, who's got a lot of
too many black people in the sketch.
Yeah, that's true.
Talking about Saturday Night Live.
We'd have to outsource for a second.
We'll have to bring Fred Armisen back and, dip him in 2 Obama makeups.
Well, they hired 5 new white people.
I think they still have...
They still have Keenan, they still have Jay Farrell. So they could do it. Yeah, they could do it. Yeah,
Keenan could be Magic.
Yeah.
This is going to happen. I'm going to make this happen. But I have to finish Stephen A. Smith. I'm not done with him.
Oh, yeah. We should mention you wrote the Stephen A. Smith.
I did write the first one with McKay. I had the idea, and I told Adam McKay, I was at his house, and I was like, I got this thing where Stephen A. is just, he takes it so seriously.
You said you and Dana would do Dueling Lawrence.
And Dana came up with the pinky. That was like a controversy, and that became Dr. Evil's pinky. And Mike added a million wrinkles to Dr. Evil that
was like a little bit. It got a little dicey there, though, with Mike and Dana Carvey.
I think there was some pinky controversy, but Dana and I did Lauren first, but Dr. Evil's like an amazing. Right. Mike's my hero for doing that movie, because before then there weren't any. You could never have a not funny villain in a movie. You could never have a funny villain. There was always like these comedies that...
Well, they always had to be like John Lithgow and Cliffhanger, like over the top.
Yeah, they were always the saving the world stuff. It was that Ghostbusters thing.
Yeah.
And Ghostbusters was great, but then there came many imitations afterward where it's always like, dragnet kind of stuff where you have to take the plot seriously. And Mike, we tried to do it. I wrote a Hans and Franz movie with Carvey and Nealon and Conan, and we had a crazy, hilarious villain. But
I remember this story. Arnold Schwarzenegger was attached, but then
it was his idea.
His movie bombed, and you couldn't do it.
Yes, Arnold wanted to do the movie, and I thought, what a horrible idea. How is anybody going to stand these characters? But then I thought, let's make it a musical, and let's make the second half all in California, and it'll be a parody of Arnold's oversized world. And we wrote a really funny script. And Arnold, yes, he did Last Action Hero, and I was told, I'll never play myself in the movie again. It was that kind of thing.
That movie and Sprockets were the 2 lost SNL
I hear that's a very funny script. I have no doubt it's a fine. No, there are many. I wrote a De Beers sketch movie with Odenkirk.
There's a De Beers movie?
There's a De Beers. That's why I left Conan. I got offered to write a De Beers movie, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. And me and Odenkirk wrote one. It was crazy. Odenkirk had a great idea where it was during the baseball strike, and Odenkirk had this great idea. Let's make it. I wanted to make it sort of about sports being taken away from the regular fan, and Odenkirk had this idea of like having Martin Short play like this young inheritance guy who buys the Bears and wants to change Soldiers Field into like an exclusive 200 seat, like with just couches and piano bars, just like sort of a fruity guy, and call it Soldiers Club, and. We had that going, and there was a whole parallel story about all the sports going on strike at once and how the superfans reacted to that. And then it ended with
This could still work. By the way, you haven't talked me out of this.
It ends. This will talk you out of it.
Okay.
It ends with the superfans. And they come up with a sport called fanball during the strike by accident. They want to mobilize, so they go from town to town to mobilize with other, we're going to fight back. But they would only get into fights with the fans. Like they'd go to Boston, and Sandler wasn't famous, so he was going to do a cameo.
Yeah.
Can I curse? Are you allowed to curse?
Yeah.
And, the Bears would come, the fans would get there, and they'd be like, now we all need to mobilize because, even despite our differences between our superior town and your piece of crap town with your beans and your farts, and Sandler would be like, you my bean town rules, and then they would get into a fight, and everywhere they would go, every city, it would end up being a fight. And then one of them gets the idea that this could be a sport, fanball, where I can't remember what it was, but it was something like each team of fans would be in an arena, and they would have to pass their fan from one side to the other just by carrying him and punching out all the other fans. And in the movie, this becomes a huge success.
It sounds like the internet.
Yeah, I know. And Farley becomes a huge fanball star, his character, and then he gets to host Saturday Night Live. And
oh man, this movie could have worked.
And then
I'm disappointed.
And then anyway, in the end, somehow I don't remember how this gets to it, but in order to buy the teams back somehow and save sports, the superfans place a bet in the Indianapolis 500 that on a bus that Ditka is riding filled with bears in it, filled with the Chicago Bears. Because that was a joke in one of our sketches, Bears in the Indianapolis 500. Is Ditka driving? Yes, he is. Well, then I like the Bears. And so in the movie, this actually happens. And it's completely ridiculous. And by then, the studio had probably torn it up before they'd even gotten to that part. But
I still haven't figured out a reason why this didn't happen.
Well, we did a live reading of it in Chicago, and it murdered, obviously, in Chicago.
We never quickly talked about the Dana Carvey show. I know
God, or Night of Too Many Stars. That's why I came.
No, but we're ending with that.
Okay, good. Okay.
The oral history covered all of it. But we should just mention that was where you met.
I could come back someday.
You hired Louis C.K.
No, I hired him at Conan.
Oh, you hired him at Conan.
Conan had an incredible writing staff,
I didn't realize Louis C.K. was at Conan.
Yeah.
I knew he ended up there, but I didn't know that was his first one.
No, that was he was in the original. Again, the writing was trashed, but we had Louis. We had this writer, Dino Stamatopoulos, who's one of the funniest writers ever, wrote for Mr. Show and created stuff on Adult Swim that everybody knows, Moral Oral, and Dave Reynolds, who ended up co-writing Finding Nemo, and Bob Odenkirk was there for the early weeks.
So 20 years ago, if I told you Louis had the most revered comedy that he starred and directed in and wrote every scene and did basically everything on the show, would you have believed that? Absolutely, because Louis was making films before he was a Conan writer. That was part of his submission. He actually didn't have a lot to write down to give us. We hired him on the strength of his stand-up comedy and his films. He had written some short films that were really inventive, and one of the great things about seeing the show on the air is that as much success as Louis had, and as happy as I was for him, there was a part of me that always was like, he's a great director. I would love to see Louis make films again. And he's not making films, but he's making is making films on cable, and it's certainly much more inventive than I think anyone who didn't know him was prepared for. Absolutely, nobody knew he would be such a good filmmaker and have these crazy jazz scores that he kind of improvises. He hires a musician and he just kind of works with the guy, and they make it up. When I was talking to him at the Emmys and he came over, yes, and it was clear that you guys have just a deep history. Oh yeah, it was like seeing two family members together. Get through. And the Dana Carvey thing, I love. He wouldn't even talk to the oral history person about it. He's still scarred emotionally. No, he didn't want to cast a pall on the thing any more than the pall. He didn't want to cast a pall on the pall. But it seems like between that and the movie that he did, had like this
Pootie Tang.
Had this
that movie was taken away from him.
Right. And it basically shaped what he does on this show. That he didn't want anybody interfering with anything he did anymore.
Well, he had Lucky Louie between that.
And that too. Yeah,
it was a really fascinating experiment, in some ways even more than what he's doing now. Just like, I love those kind of challenges where you can reinvent an old style, and that show should have succeeded. I think they just couldn't stand the aesthetic of like this dirty looking videotaped show on HBO.
Right.
Just like every show looks gorgeous, you know.
It was the wrong channel for it.
I think so, yeah.
I think it feels like if it had been FX or who knows, I think it might have had a different destiny. I mean, they obviously need to work out some of the kinks with the show.
Right.
Just never felt like an HBO show. Some do, some don't, you know?
No, it definitely didn't. But sometimes there's a reason to do it for that. You know, that's what I have trouble with these basic cable networks, because they're obsessed with branding. That's their thing. It's like, I'll pitch something that I just know is hilarious and in my mind, and that it's going to work somewhere, and then it just doesn't fit in with what they envision their network shows look like. You know?
What word of advice would you give you 25 years ago? Knowing all the stuff you know now.
Would I give myself?
Yeah, 1986 Smigel.
I'd still give it to myself. Just calm down. Don't worry so much. Is what I would say to myself.
That's a good one.
I just get caught up in wanting to make everything great, and I get bogged down. It's better now because I have like a lot of business at home. You know, like, okay, so I'm writing movie scripts now. I just I'd like to be doing some more crazy again, but I just need the money. And hopefully I'll get back to doing goofy things more often. But it's hard to care, you know. And even though my career, I haven't been thrilled with everything since I left SNL, pretty much. These have been the best years of my life. Just having those boys, it's just like, it's a good lesson. Like, just chase the highs. You know what I mean? They're just, you just don't know it until you get it.
Did you write for Larry Sanders or no?
No.
That was like the
Curb Your Enthusiasm. That's the highlight of just that weekend of just being with Larry David and doing something on his show.